We're trying to hide and be sneaky for when Danny comes back to surprise him, but it's kind of hard with this huge camera. Okay. He's coming, he's coming. Hi, Daniel.
Oh, what's going on? It's a minion popsicle. Popsicle, lollipop, marshmallow.
What's on your desk?
You know, I don't know. Did you get
Who gave you that?
I have no idea. It says, to a wonderful human, I hope you have a great day. I'm guessing it's Laura.
He has no idea. I love this. I love seeing people happy. You know what else makes people happy? Traveling. And in this next hot button, Asma and Nancy talk about traveling in Canada.
Hello and welcome to Hot Button. With summer here, it seems that everyone I know is going away for a trip. Some are going far and wide, and some are staying close to home. And I'm also excited about getting out of town for a few weeks. Montreal's calling this August.
That's great. I actually just got back from Montreal a few weeks ago. Well, it was more like a stopover on my way to New Brunswick. Where exactly do you plan to visit while you're in Montreal?
So I'll be staying for a few days in downtown Montreal, and then I'm heading over to Quebec City for the latter half of the trip. Do you have any recommendations about the places that I should visit or see? There seems to be so much to do, but I only have like a week there, so I don't really know what I can get in that time.
Well, unless you're staying with my family members, I really don't have any suggestions for you. I left Montreal was 1975. When I do go back, it's to visit family members. And because there's so many of them, it takes a whole trip. However, I know you're going to love downtown Montreal and Quebec City. You can always go onto Google and do some search.
That's true. So I have actually been doing some research and discovered what I'm told are some must-see tourist destinations. So some of the names that popped up were the Notre Dame Cathedral, the famous museums of Montreal, and then St. Lawrence Boulevard as well. What I'm also really excited about is trying new cuisines.
Oh, the food in Montreal is like awesome. Whether it's fine French cuisine or barbecue ribs and everything else in between. And then there's all those nice little specialty stores you can stop in. They sell antiques or perhaps latest fashions. How long are you going to be in Montreal and Quebec City? And which city are you going to go to first?
So I'm spending 3 days in Montreal and then heading over to Quebec City for another 3 or so days. And then with all the planning that's been going on for accommodation and sightseeing and how to get from point A to point B, I sure am glad that I don't need to worry about, applying for a visa or really even having to take my passport. It's wonderful to be able to travel across the country so freely.
Yes, I totally agree. There's so many things to think about when you're traveling. What to pack, where you're going to stay, booking hotels. Not having to worry about losing your passport while you're away is definitely a plus.
I couldn't agree more. So you mentioned that you went from Montreal to New Brunswick. Who did you travel with and how was your trip? Did you have a good time?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. It was one of those trips that was perfect from the beginning to the end, starting with getting on the plane in Vancouver. I traveled with 2 of my sisters and we traveled standby because one of my sisters is a retired airline employee, and which means we get cheaper flights. And we got bumped up to first class. The rest of the trip was just jam-packed with trying to visit with family and friends, both in Montreal and then again in New Brunswick, which is where I'm from originally. So while in New Brunswick, we visited my oldest brother and some of his children. Then we saw aunts and uncles and ate lobster. It was all good.
Lobster is always a good idea, isn't it? Sounds like you had quite the trip. Did you do any touristy things or go sightseeing while you were in Montreal or in New Brunswick?
No, we didn't have any time. There was a plan, somebody was going to go hiking up the Sugarloaf Mountain. However, it never happened. With such a large family, it just took up all of our time. Well, that and eating.
I know exactly what you mean. So I was visiting my sister and her family a few weeks ago in Toronto, and I thoroughly enjoyed spending time with my niece and my nephew and just being at home instead of doing, the big old touristy trip. So let me ask you a question. Did you fly or drive out from Montreal to New Brunswick? So I'm debating whether I should take the train back from Montreal to Vancouver instead of flying home.
Well, we actually drove from Montreal to New Brunswick, but I think your idea of taking the train would be really awesome. We hadn't thought about it, of course, and then time was a factor. The train trip itself, I think it would be really nice. There's something about being on the train and with the motion, and then you can get up and go to the dining car, and if you like to socialize, perhaps you can meet some of the other travelers. All in all, I think it would be a really wonderful experience. I traveled often when I was young, but never as long a trip as the one you're planning.
Yeah, that's true. They say it takes between 3 to 4 days to get from Montreal back home by road. But I really do think the experience is going to be worth it.
Since you're planning your second summer getaway, do you have any tips for the time and budget conscious traveler?
Oh, I think there are a few things that you can do that go a long way to help save money. So say you're traveling with a friend or a family member, you can go, instead of getting separate rooms, you can get double beds and split the cost of one room. Doing some research, you also discovered that there are quite a few really nice bed and breakfast inns that offer much better deals and comparable service instead of, the big name brand hotel chains. And if you're traveling with a bigger group, you might want to look on Groupon for activities that you can do. And if summer traveling isn't on your list, well, getting away off season will help you travel in style while still staying in budget.
Well, I really hope you have a wonderful time. Don't forget to take photos and put them on Facebook. Are you planning a trip this summer? Let us know where you're headed. Share your travel stories with us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time on Hot Button.
And that's a wrap on our Pay It Forward episode of Go on Shaw TV. Like us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and let us know how you've paid it forward. Even though you're doing something good for somebody else, I have to say it feels pretty darn wonderful.